If Donald Trump was hoping that this would be the weekend, that the Jeffrey Epstein story would finally go away, this would not be that weekend.
A stunning story raising new questions about Trump's past relationship with the late sex offender Jeffrey Epstein.
But I still have all the old questions. And those questions might go bad. But go on.
President Trump is lashing out at the Wall Street Journal for claiming that he once sent a 50th birthday card to financier Jeffrey Epstein that contained a bawdy doodle.
My God, a bawdy doodle. At long last, sir, have you no decency? What are we doing, the news in Victorian England now? This scallywag sent me a ribald daguerreotype. My God, alert the constable. That's all you got, bawdy doodle? How bad can it be?
And it's a cryptically written letter, a crude drawing.
It contains several lines of typewritten text framed by the outline of a naked woman.
A pair of small arcs denotes the woman's breasts.
And the future president's signature is a squiggly Donald below her waist, mimicking pubic hair.
Pubic hair! Oh my God, you broke Blitzer! Pubic hair! By the way, not to be, the grammar police, but it's pubic hair. Pubic hair, that's the way that inflection. Pubic hair. Pubic hair! What's the deal with all the curls? No, it's not. Now, a billionaire sending another billionaire a birthday card with a playful, nudie cartoon isn't incriminating in and of itself. It's really the creepiness of the sentiments expressed. Ladies and gentlemen, unfortunately, our lead, Meryl Streep, was unavailable tonight. So, performing tonight's creepy birthday card, please welcome, ladies and gentlemen, Nicole Wallace.
Voiceover. There must be more to life than having everything, the note began. Donald. Yes, there is, but I won't tell you what it is. Jeffrey. Nor will I, since I also know what it is. Donald. We have certain things in common, Jeffrey. Jeffrey. Yes, we do, come to think of it.
Things in common. Could be anything. You could write all kinds of things you have in common inside the outline of a naked woman. We're both gluten intolerant. You both prefer window seats on airplanes to private islands. Oh, God. I hope Act 2 of this play doesn't make it worse.
Donald. Enigmas never age. Have you noticed that? Jeffrey. As a matter of fact, it was clear to me the last time I saw you. Donald. The pal is a wonderful thing. Happy birthday. And may every day be another wonderful secret.
What did I tell you? Every day is another wonderful secret. I fucking threw up in my own mouth on that one. I don't even know what any of this means, but I do know that every line in that card sounds like the password you have to use to get into the orgy in Eyes Wide Shut. Donald, we have certain things in common. Jeffrey, enigmas never age. All right, gentlemen, come on in and grab a mask. I gotta say, for that birthday card, how much must it have sucked to be the next guy in the office that had to sign that Epstein birthday card? You want me to sign it right by the pubic hair or by the just the little titties? What do you want? I'm just gonna write here's to 50 more. Now, MAGA world, as you know, is demanding the Epstein files, and yet somehow still has lined up behind Trump to defuse this apparently specific file, starting with the fact that Trump couldn't have written that birthday card. He doesn't know all the words that were in it.
Somebody did an AI search, and out of decades and decades and decades of being a public figure and now a political figure, Donald Trump has never used the word enigma.
I imagine he's used words that are close. Well, if AI cannot find reference to the word enigma in all of Donald Trump's communiques over the roll 212.
I'm first, Carson's second. Now, Carson's an enigma to me. Carson's an enigma.
He knows the word. And Trump has accurately used it in a sentence. Extra credit. Is there any other exculpatory evidence?
The Wall Street Journal, they got the following on-the-record quote from Trump that said in part, "I never wrote a picture in my life." He then doubled down on his social media platform, posting, "I don't draw pictures."
Yes! Donald Trump neither writes pictures nor draws pictures. Which, as the experts will tell you, are the two leading causes of pictures. Obviously, that's not something you can probably search in AI. The only way you could disprove is with literal evidence of Donald's doodles.
Trump in 2008, in his book, recalled donating an autographed doodle every year to charity.
Here is a drawing of the New York City skyline, signed by Donald Trump in golden ink.
What building in New York City has pubic hair? I'm sorry. Pubic hair. Pubic hair! Oh, pubic hair! I guess this makes Donald Trump just another world leader we wish had just stuck with art. No. Tell your friends. Look, I do have to say, it is a little troubling to me that Team Trump's talking points are, he doesn't even know that word, or he can't draw. And not, why would anyone think he would write a creepy letter to a pedophile? I guess that's because Trump bragged about busting into the dressing rooms at Miss Universe contests and was accused of busting into the dressing room at Miss Teen USA pageants and told a couple of 14-year-olds he'd be dating them in 2 years. Yeah, and then there's this.
Do you think you could now be banging 24-year-olds?
Oh, absolutely. I have no trouble.
Would you do it?
I have no problem.
Yeah, do you have an age limit, or would you?
No, I have no age. I mean, I have an age. I don't want to be like
upper bracket, yeah.
Foley with 12-year-olds.
I'm not a creep. I just want to make it clear. That is what he's admitting to when he knows he's being recorded. Literally, you're sitting in a studio with a giant sign that says, "On air." And you're like, 12 would be just too much. Come on. Maybe it's a lot easier to argue over doodles and vocabulary than to have to confront whether a letter like this lines up with Donald Trump's character. They don't want people asking if the person who'd send a doodle to Jeffrey Epstein was also the type of person that would have said this in a deposition.
When you're a star, they let you do it. You can do anything. Grab them by the pussy. You can do anything. That's what you said, correct?
Well, historically, that's true with stars.
It's true with stars that they can grab women by the pussy?
Well, if you look over the last million years, I guess that's been largely true. Not always, but largely true. Unfortunately or fortunately.
guy's such an enigma. Again, I just want to point out here. Under oath, fortunately or unfortunately, under oath, he doesn't take a position on whether the coerced pussy grabbing is fortunate or unfortunate. None of this looks good. And as the temperature rises on the unanswered questions about Donald Trump's relationship with Jeffrey Epstein, the Trump administration was forced to respond.
Breaking news. Moments ago, the Director of National Intelligence, Tulsi Gabbard, releasing the 230,000 files.
Oh, my God. That's from this afternoon. It worked. The incessant public pressure, mainly from, I'll give credit, the MAGA base, has finally forced Trump's hand. Let's hear what's in those files.
230,000 files related to the assassination of Martin Luther King Jr.
Epstein killed Martin Luther King Jr.? What the fuck? Why are you releasing that? What? All right, obviously those are different files. Anything else?
This happened today. AG Bondi released files.
Yes. This is all happening today. What's in those files?
Related to the FBI's handling of the investigation into Hillary Clinton's use of a private email server.
Oh, good. Finally, we'll get to know the truth about Hillary's private email island. As the Epstein missile heads towards the fuselage, look at Trump firing off countermeasures from Air Force One, like Rooster and Maverick in Top Gun. Maverick, sir, we got a bogey at 5 o'clock. Hillary Clinton's emails. They're still closing, sir. Cuckoosh, Martin Luther King's files. Cuckoosh, cuckoosh. We're out of files. Surely it's curtains. Wait, I've still got one more trick up me sleeve. Boys, it's been an honor serving with you. Here we go.
Trump threatens to restrict the stadium deal with the Washington Commanders if they don't change their name back to the Redskins.
Are you fucking kidding me? You know, they always say liberals are condescending to MAGA. I cannot think of anything more condescending than the way Trump treats MAGA. Oh, you want to know more about how the super rich are trafficking underage girls with impunity? Would you still want to know if I let you use an outdated slur for Native Americans? I guess in Trump's mind, he doesn't have to keep his promises to MAGA as long as he continues to attack the people that MAGA hates. That's his get-out-of-jail-free card. Trump believes he has immunity as long as he remains a petty tyrant, demanding only liberal institutions surrender to his whims. And what's crazy is liberal institutions have.
Columbia University is bowing to President Trump's demands.
ABC News settling a defamation suit with President Trump, paying out $15 million.
Trump collected a big check, $25 million from Meta.
A powerful law firm is caving to growing pressure from the Trump administration.
The president pressuring two more law firms, and they have relented.
Wilkie Farr and Gallagher became the latest major law firm to enter into one of these settlements with the White House.
Really? Wilkie, Farr, and Gallagher. We know Gallagher wouldn't put up a fight. And Farr was always a coward. But this episode has long last brought shame to the proud name of Wilkie. Oh, Wilkie! Not since John Wilkie Booth assassinated Abraham Lincoln. Too soon? But since we're on the topic of corporate capitulation to the whims of a pussy-grabbing enigma, last week, as you may have heard, CBS, which happens to have the same parent company as the network this program currently airs on, unceremoniously canceled The Late Show with Stephen Colbert. And yes, in this case, I'll allow it. Now, obviously, I am certainly not the most objective to comment on this matter. Many of you may or may not know, Stephen and I worked together on this very program. Together from 1999 through 2005. Look how young. Look at that. Haven't changed a bit. And then Stephen began our sister program, The Colbert Report, also on Comedy Central. A show which, in my mind, if I may, a show which, in my mind, remains to this day one of the most astounding accomplishments in satirical television, rendering a fictional character in real time 4 nights a week for 10 years so seamlessly, many viewers believed him to be the boorish, high-status idiot he was portraying. They were heady times, my friends. We were 2 pretty good-sized fish in a reasonably small, basic cable pond. Both of our shows reached an inflection point in 2015. Stephen chose to challenge himself by seeing if he could succeed the legendary David Letterman in, quite frankly, a much bigger pond than the one he and I had been swimming in. And I quit. Stephen challenged himself. I passed away. Stephen challenged his abilities in the biggest field you could, and I literally went to a farm upstate. It's true. He did it. I didn't. And, if I may, watching Stephen exceed all expectations in the role and become the #1 late-night show on network television has been an undeniable great pleasure for me as a viewer and as his friend. And now, Stephen has been canceled for purely financial reasons. And by the way, not just Stephen's show, CBS has canceled the entirety of the Late Show franchise. Gone! Now, I acknowledge, losing money. Late night TV is a struggling financial model. We're all basically operating a Blockbuster kiosk inside of a Tower Records. But when your industry is faced with changes, you don't just call it a day. My God! When CDs stopped selling, they didn't just go, oh, well, music, it's been a good run. The fact that CBS didn't try to save their #1 rated network late-night franchise that's been on the air for over 3 decades is part of what's making everybody wonder, was this purely financial? Or maybe the path of least resistance for your $8 billion merger? Was killing a show that you know rankled a fragile and vengeful president, so insecure, suffering terribly from a case of chronic penis insufficiency? It's a terrible disease. It's a terrible disease. Truly. It's a vicious disease. I believe CBS lost the benefit of the doubt 2 weeks prior when they sold out their flagship news program to pay an extortion fee to said president. At that time, poor Andy Rooney must have been rolling over in his bed. That's right. He's alive. Andy Rooney is alive. I probably buried the lead on this entire bit. Andy Rooney is alive. And he's just turning over in bed. You know what he's probably doing? Biding his time. for when the network calls him and says, is anything else bothering you, Andy? Yeah, the thing is. Ask your parents. He was on 60 Minutes. Look, I understand the corporate fear. I understand the fear that you and your advertisers have with $8 billion at stake. But understand this, truly. The shows that you now seek to cancel, censor, and control, a not insignificant portion of that $8 billion value came from those fucking shows. That's what made you that money. Shows that say something, shows that take a stand, shows that are unafraid. And not to, believe me, this is not a, we speak truth to power. We don't. We speak opinions to television cameras. But we try. We fucking try every night. And if you believe, as corporations or as networks, you can make yourselves so innocuous that you can serve a gruel so flavorless that you will never again be on the boy king's radar? A, why will anyone watch you? And you are fucking wrong. You want to know how impossible? This is true. Do you want to know how impossible it is to stay on Lord Farquaad's good side?
President Trump says he will sue the Wall Street Journal and its owner, Rupert Murdoch, who also owns Fox News.
Donald Trump is suing Rupert Murdoch, the owner of Fox News, the man, other than Biden, maybe most responsible for getting Trump elected. Fox! I fucking snuck that in there. Yeah! Fox spends 24 hours a day blowing Trump, and it's not enough. Imagine suing someone mid-blow. How could you? Finish up down there, and I'll see you in court. So here's the point. If you're trying to figure out why Stephen's show is ending, I don't think the answer can be found in some smoking gun email or phone call from Trump to CBS executives or in CBS's QuickBooks spreadsheets on the financial health of late night. I think the answer is in the fear and pre-compliance that is gripping all of America's institutions at this very moment. Institutions that have chosen not to fight the vengeful and vindictive actions of our pubic hair doodling commander-in-chief. This is not the moment to give in. I'm not giving in. I'm not going anywhere. I think. So to those institutions, to those corporations and advertisers and universities and law firms, all of them, if you still think that bending the knee to Trump will save you, I have one thing to say. I know you're scared. I know you're weary. I know your plans don't include me. But these are troubled times. So sack the fuck up. Shrink. Not the time. This is the time to fight. Time to fight. This is the time to rise up. Not too fast, you're old. I am old. That is a true point. Obviously, the blood pressure, etc. But compliance and complacency is not the answer. We reject the mindless, machine-generated slop that offends nobody, and we affirm our shared humanity. We must continue to have humans make things that inspire and provoke other humans.
ChatGPT wrote that.
But if you're afraid and you protect your bottom line, I've got but one thing to say. Just one little phrase. You tell them. Go fuck yourself. 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 Wait. Bring it down. Let's bring it down. Let it be quiet. Fuck yourself. Just go fuck yourself. Everybody. Fuck yourself. Just go fuck yourself. Fuck yourself. Just go fuck yourself. Fuck yourself. Just go fuck yourself. Go fuck yourself. Go fuck yourself.
Let's kick things off with distractions. What it looks like when they're fed to the media and what it looks like when they don't work. Because right now, Donald Trump is desperate to move on from the Epstein files. But the story is only building.
A major development just in. The Department of Justice says it is trying to set up a meeting with longtime Jeffrey Epstein associate Ghislaine Maxwell, who's in prison.
The Justice Department now putting out a new statement and saying if Ghislaine Maxwell has information about anyone who has committed crimes against victims, the FBI and the DOJ will hear what she has to say.
Wait. You haven't talked to Ghislaine Maxwell? Epstein's accomplice? The woman he's in the most pictures with? Wouldn't she be your first witness? Also, stick with me here. How funny would it be if the FBI gets there and she's like, I'm finally ready to talk. I'm finally ready to tell you everything. But then at the last second, she grabs one of the agent's guns and takes herself out. The FBI would have to come out like, okay, I know how this looks. But I swear, here's how much I want you to believe me. We did do the first one, okay? We did run up on Epstein and held him down, shook him a little bit. We didn't do this one. But while we wait to see if Ghislaine survives this interview, Trump has been doing everything that he can to keep those files under wraps. He's even got his friends in Congress trying to help. Mike Johnson shut down the House just to avoid a vote on the release of the files. Yeah. Do you understand that they cleared Congress out for the summer like they found a dookie in the pool? But trying to shut down the release of the files only makes them more interesting. So over the last week, Trump has been throwing every distraction he can at us. And I want to go through some of them to show you how desperate he's getting. Let's start with his go-to distraction. Obama!
The witch hunt that you should be talking about is they caught President Obama absolutely cold. They tried to steal the election. They tried to obfuscate the election. Irrefutable proof that Obama was seditious.
No, booze aside. Sedacious? It feels like he's mispronouncing a new black friend's name. Oh, I want you to meet my friend, Sedacious. Thanks. It's Sean. The problem with this distraction is that it's so old, Jeffrey Epstein wouldn't date it, all right? Trump has been going after Obama for decades. He's gonna need something else, something juicy.
The White House offering an unexpected health update on President Trump, revealing that he recently underwent a battery of tests and has now been diagnosed with chronic venous insufficiency.
Doctors tell us it means there isn't adequate blood flow to the veins in the legs, which can cause swelling.
Oh, no. Look at that ankle. When I said something juicy, I didn't mean... A shoe should not give you a muffin top. And I cannot stress how big of a deal this is, because they never admit that Trump has anything but impeccable health. Usually they bring out a doctor to be like, Donald Trump has big muscles and a girthy ass dick. Medically speaking, he makes Hercules look like a pig with cancer. Like, I'm not exaggerating. His doctors once said that his blood pressure was astonishingly excellent. That's not even how blood pressure works. Blood pressure is numbers. If you want to impress us, say 120/80. They made it sound like Trump could control his blood pressure like the settings on a fancy hose. His blood pressure is on miss, but he can turn it up to cone or jet if he so chooses. But I get why they put this out. One, it's a good distraction. And two, people have been starting to notice that Trump looks, medically speaking, like shit.
After these images of President Trump started to draw attention, apparent bruises on his hands covered with makeup seen in February and this week, the White House physician says it's consistent with minor soft tissue irritation from frequent handshaking and the use of aspirin.
Well, problem solved. No one's going to shake hands that look like that. Even that hand right there, you could tell that the thumb is like, ew, 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 ew. But okay, Trump violating his own HIPAA rights didn't get people to move on from Epstein. So now he's getting snacks involved.
President Trump says he's convinced Coca-Cola to change its recipe. The president claims that the company has agreed to start using real cane sugar in Coke products.
This is so insulting. Trump's treating Americans like a kid you can bribe with a treat. Allow me to demonstrate what Donald Trump is going for here. I don't care about pedophilia anymore. Delicious. And if all that doesn't work for you, if you don't care about Coke or Trump's health, don't worry. He's got some true crime for you.
This morning, the Trump administration releasing more than 230,000 pages of records related to the assassination of civil rights icon Martin Luther King Jr.
That's how bad things are for Trump. His back is against the wall so hard, he's releasing more Black history. But this might be the worst distraction, because all he did was remind us that he can declassify thousands of secret files, and people noticed.
Bernice King, the daughter of Dr. Martin Luther King Jr., posted this picture on social media with the caption that simply reads, "Now do the Epstein files."
Damn, that is cold. Do you know how much you have to screw up for Dr. King's family to go, no, we choose violence? If Trump wants to distract us, all he has to do is keep his promises. If you ended the wars in Gaza and Ukraine, that'd be extremely distracting. If you put up affordable housing, Americans would be like, what Epstein files? What Epstein files? I'm too distracted memorizing my new home address. If you want to think of it in terms you can understand, think of it like a bribe, Mr. President. You're the deal guy. Make us a deal. We want to know what's in the Epstein files, but if you put some universal health care in your palm and hand it over, Epstein who? I ain't seen nothing. Let's kick things off with drug prices. They're too damn high. They're so expensive that rappers are balling out on a full prescription, okay? Singles are dropping like, I got a drop top Benz and a multiply Alexa Pro. Now, President Trump made big promises about lowering drug prices once he got into office, but all the haters said he was never actually going to get it done. Well, guess what, haters? His promises just got even bigger.
We're going to get the drug prices down, not 30 or 40%, which would be great, not 50 or 60. No, we're going to get them down 1,000%, 600%, 500%, 1,500%. Numbers that are not even thought to be achievable.
Yeah, I also thought it would not be achievable to lower drug prices 1,000%, because that's not how percentages work. Just so you understand, lowering drug prices 100% means it's free. Lowering it past that means they're going to give you money. Like, next year's Forbes billionaires list is just going to be a bunch of dudes with leukemia. Okay? On the bright side, we're actually going to be bankrupting insurance companies instead of the other way around. You know, if Trump had enacted this sooner, that CEO would have shot Luigi. But look. Trump actually does have a plan here. It's not to put a cap on the drug prices. That'd be too easy and simple.
We're working very hard right now to get the other countries to lift up their prices a little bit and to get the drug companies to put it to them. And if they don't, the drug companies will have a lot of problems, and they are mostly agreed to it. And if the countries don't, then as an example, if it's Europe, I'll say that's okay. You're no longer allowed to sell cars in America. You're no longer allowed to have Mercedes, BMW, Volkswagen, or any of the other many cars. And they will say, oh, I love the idea of lower drug prices for America.
So the plan, just so I have it right, is to lower drug prices here by forcing Europe to raise drug prices over there, or they can't sell us their cars, reducing our choices as consumers and making cars in general more expensive for everybody. And I know it's very confusing, but I've seen this before. This is crackhead logic, all right? A crackhead can never go from A to B, all right? When I was a kid, I'd see a dude who needed $15, but instead of asking for money, he would try to sell you a tire, which of course he didn't have, but he did have a bike chain, and if you would buy that bike chain from him for $12, he would put that towards the tire, and then one day, eventually, buy crack. And my point is, that's a better drug plan than what Donald Trump is doing. Look, but still, Donald Trump is promising to lower drug prices for America. That's the news for the day. And I'm sure no one is going to talk about anything else.
Brand new bombshell reporting from the Wall Street Journal.
The Wall Street Journal reporting that U.S. Attorney General Pam Bondi told President Trump back in May that his name appears multiple times in the Epstein files.
No. You're best friends with a pedophile for 10 years, one time, and the world never forgets it. But yeah, this whole time, Trump already knew he was in the Epstein files, which is a good reminder that if someone's acting guilty, they're probably guilty. No one's ever going to be like, don't look at my browser history. You'll see all the charities I volunteer for. But the good news for Trump is this is America. We don't read. As long as there's no video coming out, he should be A-OK.
CNN exclusive. Newly uncovered photos and video offers a new look at President Trump's past ties to Jeffrey Epstein.
Here you see the two, the opening of the Harley-Davidson Cafe. Months later, some new photos reveal Epstein walking into the Plaza Hotel to attend Donald Trump's wedding to Marla Maples. There's also what was found in this review of archival footage from a 1999 Victoria's Secret fashion show, which reveals, as you see, the two men chatting, laughing with one another on the sidelines of that event.
It's getting to the point where it's harder and harder to find a photo of Donald Trump without Jeffrey Epstein in it. As Donald Trump, your only hope is to be like, hey, I take pictures with lots of people, all right? I'm in pictures with OJ, Diddy. I'm in pictures with Harvey Weinstein. That's not helping. I'm going to stop. And they're not just in the video. Look at the chemistry they have. And this is genuinely unfortunate and unfair to Trump. But the way the camera highlighted the two of them makes it look like a giant heart on a kiss cam. What makes me feel terrible is I don't have a friend that I'm as close with as Trump was to Epstein, you know? They're making drawings for each other, laughing, showing up to weddings, going to shows together. The only way my friends hang out with me that much is if we're both holding Xbox controllers. The point is, CNN found all this new footage, and Trump didn't really appreciate it.
You actually called President Trump directly to ask him about this story?
Yeah, we weren't on the phone very long. It only lasted about 30 seconds. But when I got him on the phone, I asked him about the wedding photos. He kind of paused and then said, "You've got to be kidding me." He then called CNN and me fake news a few times, and then he hung up the phone.
Wait, hold on. You can just call Donald Trump and he'll just pick up the phone himself? A president shouldn't be that available, you know? This is like pushing the call button for the flight attendant and then the pilot comes out. Like, it's like, aren't you supposed to be busy? Like, if you're here, then who's in the cockpit? I think this just shows how lonely Trump is. He's answering the phone because he just wants someone to talk to. It's kind of sad. Because remember, his best friend died in prison back in 2019. So, once again, Donald Trump can't shake the Jeffrey Epstein news. He's going to lower drug prices 2 billion%, and the media still won't let it go. But old buddy Donnie's got another card to play.
President Trump again tried to divert attention from the Epstein files, this time by accusing former President Barack Obama of treason.
Obama cheated on the election, and we have it cold, hard, blue, and it's getting even more so.
I'm sorry, you can't just say cold, hard, and blue. Like that's a normal phrase about an investigation. There's been 400 seasons of Law & Order, and no detective has ever said, "We got you cold, hard, and blue." Dun dun. But yeah, Trump is now going after Obama again, and this time he's got Tulsi Gabbard saying she's got documents that prove Obama tampered with the 2016 election, which is treason. But if you see what Obama was doing over the weekend, he doesn't seem too stressed.
In my opinion, and this is controversial in my family, you should not eat ketchup after the age of 8. Does this man seem worried? You know, he's doing a podcast about ketchup. How
is it that Barack Obama, the man Trump hates the most, is the most unbothered during 2 Trump presidencies? Like, I don't know what is pissing Trump off more, the fact that no one is letting go of the Epstein files, or that Obama refuses to be the adversary Trump wants him to be. This would be like if you took the movie Lion King, and right after Scar took over Pride Rock, Simba sang Hakuna Matata for the last 43 minutes of the film. Also, what an insane take. You're not allowed to have ketchup after the age of 8? Jeffrey Epstein died back in 2019, but not since Tupac Shakur has a dead man dropped so many bangers, all right? Yesterday, video of the government questioning him back in 2010 started making the rounds, and you'll never guess whose name came up. Go ahead, guess.
Have you ever socialized with Donald Trump in the presence of females under the age of 18?
Though I'd like to answer that question, at least today, I'm going to have to assert my 5th, 6th, and 14th Amendment rights, sir.
I'm going to put that down. I'm going to put that down as a yes. I'll be honest, I've never heard anybody plead anything other than the 5th before. But this guy's so guilty, he's calling out every amendment he can think of. Like, no, what's the one with the women voting? 19, throw that in too. Now, this video is dropping less than a day since we found out Pam Bondi reportedly warned Trump back in May that his name was in the files multiple times. And it just so happens her next appearance was scheduled last night at a summit against human trafficking. Pam, show us what you got.
I do have a note from the Attorney General, Pam Bondi, that I wanted to share. I'm sorry to miss all of my CPAC friends today. Unfortunately, I am recovering from a recently torn cornea, which is preventing me from being with you.
Damn. Even Pam Bondi's cornea is like, release the Epstein files or I quit. I don't even understand this. Like, why does her cornea mean she can't talk? Like, I don't know a lot about women's bodies, and this is embarrassing to ask, but is the cornea in the throat? Like, the only member of the Trump administration that I would believe has an eye injury is FBI Director Kash Patel. I can't tell if that man is blind or can see the future. He always looks like he just saw the Epstein files. But yeah, a lot of people were suspicious about this excuse because now everything is being viewed within the context of the Epstein story. So Bondi skipping a panel on sex trafficking was bad timing. And speaking of bad timing,
Roy Black, a prominent criminal defense attorney who defended Epstein, passed away on Monday at the age of 80.
Yes, Epstein's lawyer died. But don't we all? That man was 80. That's a very normal age to be pushed into an oncoming train, all right? No matter what the reason was, Epstein's lawyer dying just looks bad. He had his whole life to die, and he choose now? That's inconsiderate. Because of all this, Trump has lost total control of the situation. Even his allies in Congress are turning on him.
In an effort to gain clarity, 3 Republicans joined Democrats on the House Oversight Committee to subpoena the Justice Department to give Congress all of the Epstein files.
This fight's coming no matter, this is here. I'm ready to take this vote. I think we should take this vote and move forward, move this country forward, and people deserve transparency.
Nancy Mace, damn. Trump is even losing the white women. Which is great because it means we're getting the white women and we're getting those files, all right? This feels like when you're at the airport and Southwest has delayed you for 23 hours. You're standing in line at customer service and there's a white woman in line in front of you, bubbling harder than Prosecco. She's even doing the And then she turns to you and says, I'm going to say something. And you're like, yes, 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 white lady. Go up there and get that manager for all of us. All right? And it's not just Nancy Mace. This is an issue across the entire Karen American community. All right? Marjorie Taylor Greene wants the files. Lauren Boebert wants a special counsel. She's like, I came to Washington to expose pedophiles and jack people off. And I'm fresh out of people to jack off. Now, it may be surprising that some of the most diehard congressmen are going against Trump on this, but you have to remember that they ultimately just want to be reelected. And right now, their voters are absolutely losing it over this Epstein thing.
How much are your constituents clamoring for more information about Epstein right now?
It's the number one phone call that we get, by far. It's probably 500 to 1.
500 to 1?
Yeah, it's number one phone calls that we get.
I'm sorry, 500 to 1? I want to know about the Epstein files, but that is wild. That means people are calling in 500 times about Jeffrey Epstein for every one caller who's just like, hey, my tap water poison. And I could understand it if everything else in your state is going fine. But this congressman's from Missouri, okay? They have real problems, but they're using all their Boost Mobile minutes on this thing. I'll talk to my kids next month. This Epstein thing is too important. And worst of all for Trump, it's not just his allies in Congress or conservative Americans. He's pissed off his most important base of support. Crazy-ass lunatics.
Jacob Chansley, the QAnon shaman who became famous for his horned outfit during the January 6th Capitol riot, is lashing out at the man who gave him a pardon. Chansley called the president a fraud.
Wow. Do you know how down bad you are when the guys who went to prison for you are turning on you? Like, I need to stress this real quick. He went to jail for Trump. This would be like if Nelson Mandela came out of prison like, you know what? I'm done with black people. These guys believe in everything but you. Take a look.
He also suggested that the president had defiled a corpse. Billionaire Elon Musk wasn't spared either, with Chansley describing the world's richest man as a baby eater.
This is so bad. That's the thing about QAnon. Like, if Kendrick Lamar wanted to ruin your life, at least he'd do a bunch of research on you and your family. QAnon just comes out and says you're eating spines. And there's no way for you to prove you don't eat spines. In fact, every time you've got some between your teeth, they're like, see, he flossing babies.